All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. I am Randy, the news guy, and welcome to Hot Off the Press. Hey, today we've got a great show. This guy is amazing. And to give you a little bit, he is a multi-book co-author, co-founded just a huge digital marketing agency focused on the roofing industry called Roofer Marketers. He was also a co-founding member of the leadership team for the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance. And of course, he is a master podcaster as well and really knows how to grow the brand and his reputation as expert. So pretty excited to have on the show. I'm going to bring him in right now. Boom, Mr. Jim Ahlin. How you doing, brother?
I'm awesome, Randy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm awesome. I love that. That's great. Man, so much to talk about and dive in with you. And folks, if you're listening and have any comments or questions, absolutely throw them in the chat. We'll get Jim to address everything and anything that flies up. So, Jim, I don't even know. You and I met at Rank Masters event in earlier this year, and I just had a chance. We kind of chatted and talked about life a little bit even before outside of digital marketing, right? But I was so incredibly impressed with the things that you've achieved and how you grew and built your business and where you went. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background and really kind of how you started in digital marketing and where you are today.
Yeah, I was, I'm considered one of those overnight successes, Randy. So I started in, like the .com boom. I went to school and my degree's in management of information systems, and so I did server side programming, and I wrote websites in Notepad. That type of overnight success, right? Overnight success, and then as I got out of college, I was working at doing web development, server side programming in college, and then right out of college, and I realized really fast I'm not a programmer. Like, searching for capital letters and semicolons was not for me, and so. So that moved me into business, and I'm very entrepreneurial, and so I ended up in the real estate business at that time, and what happened was everyone said, "Hey, you know how to build those website things? Make one of those for us, right?" And so it kind of started that where I was using the skill set that I built for my own business, and then from there. Back in the Warrior Forum days, I, got into some, SEO tactics and built a bunch of niche websites, and, Penguin, what was it, Panda or Penguin, just, completely decimated that whole venture. I learned how to run Google ads when I had a mortgage company, and I would partner with real estate agents, and we would run Google ads for real estate searches, and they would funnel those leads over to my team in the mortgage side. Learned how to run Facebook ads, selling T-shirts on Facebook. Best one was my Derek Jeter retirement one. Thousands of shirts sold on that. Back when you could just say, "I want to target the Derek Jeter fan group," Right. And then that evolved. I had mostly owned real estate and mortgage companies through that time period. Did some real estate investing. Now we're moving into like the mid 2010s of 15, 17. And boy, I really hated my day to day in the mortgage industry. So
you were still doing the mortgage, all of that stuff, even through, man, you went through some tumultuous time during the 08, 09.
It was devastating. So
you needed to sell T-shirts at that time.
That's right. Yeah. Just to pay the rent, I needed to sell some T-shirts on Facebook. It was rough, man. And lots of lessons learned there. But But then, I sat down and had some self-reflection and realized my favorite part about what I did on a day-to-day basis was making the phone ring. And when the phone rang, I didn't want anything to do with it from then on. And so I started doing pay per lead, and in doing that for a while. And then I met my current business partner in a failed mastermind where we each paid $10,000 to join, and it fizzled out, and we both got ripped off for $10,000. But it was the best $10,000 I ever spent. Is my business partner in Roofer Marketers was Brian Niebler, and we started Roofer Marketers as a niche focused agency in October of 2018, and grew it to exit to the largest CRM in the roofing space, Job Nimbus, in March of 2023. So
wow.
Yeah.
So about 5-6 years in that agency, and
Yep.
yeah. I'm not going to get into what you exited at, but when you exited, what was? Would you want to share kind of what kind of a revenue maybe you were doing, or
Yeah.
at least number of clients you were
The
servicing?
end of 2022, we were doing about doing about 2 million in ARR. By the time March hit, at the time of our exit, we were at about 2.5 million ARR.
Nice,
We ended
nice.
the year at about 5.25 ARR. And it was, continuing to grow, but we had just hit our exponential growth at the time. And, we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But the work that we put in from a brand perspective into our agency and pouring into the niche was really the catalyst for that growth, And it was fun, man. It's been awesome.
I know that you know Ariel Cohen. We had her on the show a few weeks back as well. Another big successful agency in the roofing industry as well. Did you guys go head to head? Yeah.
Not a lot. Man, what people don't realize is there is so much business out there, Randy. It's phenomenal. I may be a little strange, but I'm friends with almost every other agency owner in the roofing space. Like at least anyone that I've known of, or met at conferences and trade shows and things like that. Like I've known Ariel and Liz for many, many years. Tim Brown, all these guys that are that were our competitors.
Right.
I don't believe that there is competition. I believe I compete with myself every day.
Yeah. I have to agree with you on that. I really come as well kind of from an abundance mindset. There is so much opportunity out there that the only limitation is yourself.
That's right.
What it is that you want to achieve. And I completely believe that. And I know in my own life, I have lived that by that theory in so many ways as I've recreated and built, kind of different careers, so to speak, for myself. And, similar to you, right? The opportunity is just what you want to create.
What's strange about it, though, I think, is in the beginning, it feels like there's not as much opportunity, but it's because you haven't created the opportunity yet. When, I couldn't have imagined us being at a $5 million agency in the roofing space when we started. It wouldn't even have crossed my mind. So I may have been, I've always had this abundance mentality, but I can see how people, as they're growing their, kind of getting things off the ground and growing, that it's like, man, that, this is because it's hard.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's all hard. So,
well, I'd love to kind of follow through on this idea a little bit as well. Just, you made a comment, and I loved how you phrased it. It may be hard in the sense because you haven't created the opportunity yet. I'm wondering if you could, kind of expound on that a little bit. What do you mean by create the opportunity?
Yeah. So for me, I think about it in terms of, and this is my thing. I may have a podcast and a book down the road around this, but it's called. I like it framed around the art of luck. And the art of luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? That's when luck happens. But if you're not prepared, you can't take advantage of the opportunity. If you're prepared and there's no opportunity, that you won't, but you have to be prepared when the opportunity presents itself. So what I mean by that is you haven't created it, is you haven't prepared yourself well enough for the opportunity that's in front of you. And it takes some self-reflection, right? To understand that, man, I'm an infant in this industry, or I'm, where am I? Have I actually put out the effort that some of these other agency owners in the space have put out? You think of like from an athletic perspective, like you'll hear stories of the greats, right? Like the Michael Jordans and Kobe Bryants and Jerry Rice and all these guys. And the amount of work that they did in the off season was more than almost anyone else on the court, right? Like I think it was it Kobe Bryant that was there? Like he did 3 practices a day when everyone else did 1, and right? Like there is a way to create that opportunity, and it's through the repetition. I mean, there are things that you have to do right, and there is a little bit of timing involved and being in the right place at the right time and all of that, but at the same time, if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not putting yourself in the position to get that business, you'll never get it.
Yeah. Great examples. I love Kobe. He's got a great story. So that is almost, his story is a great story, I think, for anybody who's thinking about, I'm going to get into a business, or I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to, start something, because, man, talk about motivation and an incredible discipline that he has.
Yeah.
So, matter of fact, I love Kobe. I've got a quote on my whiteboard and facing me, and it's "Rest at the end, not in the middle." Was a quote from Kobe, and I'm like, yeah, you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
And enjoy life like now. You've exited, and so now you're enjoying life, right?
That's right.
You've got your ring. You're like, yeah, I'm solid.
Just one though. Now I only have one. I got to fill the hands though, right? Like we can't. It doesn't stop, Randy. It's the joy of the journey, right? Enjoying the journey. It's it's hard to, again, I think it's harder to fall in love with it. Everyone talks about that, like people who have been successful, and I don't think you understand it until something like that happens, until you reach a certain level. But it's hard to know that you're on the right path and you're doing the right things a lot of times. Until it happens, and then you're like, oh, that was it. Yeah.
All right. Hey, good morning, Terry. Good to have you, brother.
Hey, Terry, how's it going?
So I've talked to a lot of different folks. I've had a lot of different SEOs and agency owners on the show. And only in more recently, I have to kind of, I'm going mentally and kind of doing a mental check on this, but I am going to say only more recently, maybe that's probably my is instance versus others, but that I've had more people that have been niche focused and talking about the success of their agency as they've been very niche focused on it. Why did you go down that path, and why did you decide on the niche that you decided?
We chose a niche. We had a couple of different iterations of Roofer Marketers before Roofer Marketers came to be. And what we kept running into was there's so much variance in the buyer journey of your customers. And so when you have to learn a painting industry, and then you go and learn a med spa industry, and you have to know the buyer's journey in each of these. And so from a fulfillment perspective, if I can understand their customers' buying journey better than they do, I am so far ahead of other agencies. My conversations with my prospects are much different. I was asked many times on the podcast or on my sales calls if I owned a roofing company.
Right.
But because I poured myself into the industry and I learned the industry and I learned the buyer journey and I learned the sales process and I learned their business model and how what levers they have to pull in their business. And so that's very impactful. But if we want to make it very simple for people, it's marketing comes down to those simple things, right? The who, the what, and the how.
Mm-hmm.
And so now from our agency's perspective, we have clearly defined our avatar. A residential roofing business owner between, this revenue and that revenue, right? Like I've clearly defined that avatar. I can clearly define their pain points around the messaging, and then I can figure out exactly where they are, and I can get that message in front of them at their trade shows, in their Facebook groups, on Facebook. Are they on Instagram? Are they, are they searching on SEO? Where are they? And we can develop content with messaging that resonates with them. So from two places, right? I understand the messaging and I understand the who, the what, and the how in their buyer's journey for their customers. And I understand their who, what, and how.
Yeah. I love that perspective. I don't know if anybody has ever really kind of put it together that way, as clear as you have there. I love that idea. So you're not only looking for the success of your own agency, but you're understanding that your success is also dependent upon how successful you can make your clients.
That's right.
And better you understand their clients, their customers' buyer journey is going to help you serve them better and as well be more successful. That's terrific. That's a great example for that, I think. Hey, good morning, Lovey. Good to see you, man. So as you started out, tell me about the early days, I guess, because we've got a lot of folks that watch and listen to the show, and they're all in either just starting out, right, in an agency, thinking about it, or starting an agency, or they're deep into it. And I always love hearing the journey of growth and how you approached it. So in the early days of Rougher Marketing, what did that look like? And as you kind of began that hockey stick of growth, what were some of the, I guess, the real tactical kinds of things? If you were telling people, hey, if you want to go from 10,000 MRR to 100,000 MRR, here's some real critical things that you would see.
Yeah. So I'll start with something I like to say, and that is, if you have faith in the outcome, you'll execute. So if you don't have faith in the outcome, you're not going to execute on a day-to-day basis.
I got to write that down.
Right?
Nice.
So the first thing you have to do if you're in an early stage of a business is you have to have faith in the outcome. And for us, we launched in October of 2018. We joined Josh Nelson's 7-figure agency mastermind in February of 2019. We were at about 4,500 a month in MRR at the time. Our customer acquisition was done through cold email and different offers in cold email, maybe an audit, a website audit, a Google Ads audit, like just different things like that. And then a lot of other cold email. And then we started to what I refer to as the marketing stack. So I think the biggest part of our success is that we would stack our marketing efforts on top of each other. So we started with that cold email, and then we, with the video audits, and then after we joined the seven-figure agency, Josh introduced us to a webinar framework. And so we stacked the webinars on top of that. And then we started going to trade shows. So that was, the industry trade shows. So that was another marketing stack. And then I started the podcast, and that was another stack to the marketing. And we were running Google ads, and that was another stack to the marketing. And we're doing SEO for ourselves for roofing companies to find us. And that's another part of the stack. And then we're running Facebook ads, and that's another part. So we continuously stacked these things on top of each other. And it's one of my favorite old business philosophers is Jim Rohn. And it's, one of the things that he says that you need 5 to 7 lead sources to have consistent lead flow in your business. Right, and I think that's the challenge in the early stages, is that you can't have consistent lead flow without multiple poles in the water.
Right.
But you haven't cast enough yet. Right. And so I think in the initial phase is you just keep doing the next thing and adding it to your stack. Mm-hmm. And then once that happens, all of a sudden, I think we ended 2019 at like 28, 30K in MRR. But then the next year we ended at like 70K, and then the next year at 115, and then the next, and it just all of a sudden you're hitting this exponential growth curve.
Yeah, doing that flywheel thing, because all of the work that you've done in the early stages really started grabbing traction, and then you're just like building. Yeah.
And all of it with the same intention. So the mission of Roofer Marketers was to help roofing contractors generate more revenue through their digital marketing efforts. But we did that in 2 ways. We did that through our done-for-you services, but we also did that through our education and effort into both. And I feel like that equal effort is what built the authority and trust in the community for that exponential growth. People saw our intention was not just to sell them.
Right.
Boy, that's hard when you don't have revenue coming in. Right. And that's where the faith in the outcome has to be. So, I mean, I did things, Randy, like I sold, I did retail arbitrage on Amazon for a couple of years on evenings and weekends just to, bring some money in and pay some bills. Like I would do anything. My full time was Roofer Marketers, but I would do any side things that I could just to, put a little, just to keep the bills paid, not rack up too much credit card debt. I racked up a little credit card debt, but I had faith in the outcome. So, I'm not telling everyone to do that, but
No, I agree. And I think, and I love how you stated that, faith in the outcome, because you do all of this stuff. And sometimes, we want, and especially now, and, it's like everything is so instant gratification. You want to see it like, I'm going to do it, here this week. And how come I didn't get business, next week. Right. And it's, I love how you phrased about having multiple poles, right, in the water, having these flows of leads, because it just takes time for some of this stuff to gain traction. And some things you can do immediately, like you can do ads, but you got to tweak the ads to kind of get them to optimize so that it's really starting to generate, and that, you're generating profitable leads and not just, leads that aren't going anywhere. And so it takes time to make all of those things happen. And whether it's the podcast or whatever it is, it just takes time. And the faith in the outcome is what will keep pushing you to like, I know it's going to work. The outcome will happen.
It took about 3 months, Randy, for my podcast to get 100 downloads or listens.
Yeah.
Right. And now I get well over 1,000 downloads a week, and over, it's just, I'm consistently in the top 150 in the marketing category on iTunes. And it's just like, but it's 250 episodes in now, consistently, week after week after week. And and not just that, but with the right intention. providing value to my audience, providing value to the community. So.
Yeah. And you guys started out, and I love how you're talking about kind of stacking, because I know I've seen some of the early videos, that you and your partner would do, and some of the early things. I mean, it was like you're just shooting like in your basement or wherever you're shooting this stuff, right?
I bought a red muslin backdrop off of Amazon. We were working on my business partner's basement, and I didn't want the basement in the background, so I threw this red cloth up, and that was what we were shooting on, and the lighting was horrible. And if you're not completely embarrassed about the content that you're putting out, if you can't look back and you're not embarrassed, you didn't go fast enough. So make sure that you are embarrassed. Embarrass yourself.
And I think a good message in that as well, even when you're starting to put content out like that, is to realize you don't have to be perfect, right? Exactly. And what you're saying is, don't just do it. That's the most important thing. You just gotta go do it. The refinements and everything else will happen, but nothing is going to happen if you don't just start today and like commit to I'm doing this. It's like going to the gym and doing the reps. I'm doing it. And you will see the results. You will have the outcome, as I love what you say. And I love this quote. Levy threw this up here from Jim Rohn: whether you say you can or whether you say you can't, you're right.
You're right.
That's right. I love Jim Rohn. Man, I love it. Hey, man, hey, good to see you, Azam. So you kind of grown, and I love what you've done. Let me go on the informational side, because, your approach about essentially creating roofer marketers as an expert in the industry. I mean, you guys wrote a couple of different books. I got them: The Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. So you've got a couple of different books out there. You also did this thing. I would love to even understand what this was and your approach to this, the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance. And then, of course, the podcast. So talk to me about your approach about establishing yourselves as industry experts, and you and like through content. I mean, how did
So I would say the first thing is that we didn't just focus on marketing. Both of our books are on marketing. The first book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, was at the time in 2018, there weren't a lot of people thinking about multi-channel marketing in the roofing industry for roofing contractors. And so it was an introduction of multi-channel marketing into the roofing industry. And so that was the Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors. The iteration of that was The Best Known Roofer, and that's the omnipresence framework for roofing contractors. And it's just an advancement on the ideas and strategies and tactics around multi-channel marketing for the industry. And so, but a different frame, right? And that's another thing is everyone might be talking about SEO and pay-per-click and this and that. We had a different message. And that message was to attract the right customer to us. We wanted a growth-minded business who didn't need leads, because if they needed leads, they're not running a good business a lot of times, right? They're not an established, they don't have a good sales process. They don't have a good fulfillment process. They're still early on. And so we wrote the books, and that created a different, like a little bit of a blue ocean for us, a blue ocean conversation, at least. The podcast came after that, well, in between a couple of the books. And the podcast was just, I interview successful roofing contractors on how they found success. And the messaging, right? So the who is a roofing business owner, because who the heck would listen to a show that is an interview of a roofing business owner talking about how they became successful in their roofing business?
Yeah. A roofer, a roofing business owner.
A growth-minded roofing business owner with revenue between X and Y, or a goal of having revenue between X and Y, right? So our who, right? Our perfect who.
Yeah.
And the messaging to them was that. And in those interviews, can you imagine 250 hours of interviewing these guys?
Yeah.
Like, do you think I had better market research for what I could do for them and how we could serve them better?
Yeah.
Not even close. And so that was the podcast. From the podcast, one of my, when you're getting a podcast going and you need guests, right, Randy? So you gotta
That's
reach
funny
out.
because that was a question that was cooking in my brain was like, where did you get these guys?
So you reach out and, you start with, I started with I looked on the Inc. 5000 for any roofing companies. And I looked at just, what brands I saw standing out in different markets that I saw around. I looked at the people who were speaking at conferences that owned companies. I was looking everywhere. Anyone who was doing content on YouTube and, just anything I came across. And that was one of my early guests. One of my first 3 guests was a gentleman named Adam Bensman, who has his moniker was the roof strategist at the time. And he had a pretty big YouTube following in roofing. I think back then he had 17,000 followers. He probably has close to 100,000 followers now on YouTube. Very successful YouTube channel. He's a sales coach in the roofing industry. And that was one of my first podcast episodes, first podcast guests. And we became friends. And over time, we collaborated. We did webinars together. We did all kinds of stuff together. I did content on his channel. He did content with me. And I think he's been on my podcast more than any other channel than his own, or on my channels as much, more than any other channel except for his own. And there came a time to preface it a little bit. I'm a success coach in Josh Nelson's 7-figure agency. So I help coach digital marketing agency owners on how to be successful through using the 7-figure agency framework. And Adam had this idea of kind of a roofing mastermind. And so I was like, hey, well, here's some good ideas that we do over here that you might be able to implement in yours, just sharing good information. And then he said, well, Jim, do you want to be the marketing coach in the group? Said, sure, Adam, I'll be the marketing coach in the group. And now I'm the marketing and business development marketing coach in the group. And that's how that came to be. And he's put his own spin on it. And it started off as a group called the Pitch Pro Movement. It's evolved into the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance. We have over 300 roofing businesses in that group right now. We're going to cap out at about 500. There has become a very strong mission to the group in stomping out the scum in the industry. It's a very like-minded group of contractors who want to serve their customers on a high level and serve their employees on a high level. So it's become something really, really cool. But it came from inviting someone on my podcast and becoming friends with them and sharing things that I thought would be helpful to them. And it all kind of came full circle around to that. So,
and such a great example for so many instances when you're just starting out your podcast. And for those, who you're thinking about this, in which, by the way, and I'm sure, Jim, you would agree, is start a podcast. You got to do it. Just start, right? It's so valuable. But when you're looking for people to bring on your show, look for folks who as well have already a good size audience, because, you can kind of help launch your kind of sphere of influence through their sphere of influence. So you said Alan had 17,000 or something like that on his YouTube channel. You didn't have anybody probably, or very few. Then all of a sudden you can be like, well, if I can just tap for a minute into his audience, maybe I can grab a few of those folks as well.
Let me add on to that for a second, Randy. This is also from a tactical perspective, from becoming a niche focused agency and becoming an authority in your niche.
Yeah.
So what, part of that is being in the in going to all of the event, going to events and trade shows and things like that. So here's a very specific thing that someone could do to start a podcast if they're in a niche focused agency. Look at the upcoming trade show. Look at the upcoming trade shows. Look at who's speaking. Figure out who would be good guests on your show. Invite them to your show.
Yep.
Have the episodes air prior to that event. Show up at that event. They're going to be speaking at that event. Bump into them and your friends.
Yep. I do that all the time. You just laid out one of the things, one of my tactics that I do all the time.
Hack.
Yes. I did that. So as an example, so this was from an SEO and with our press release and links business, we probably 70% of our clients are agency owners that we serve. And so I go to a lot of SEO conferences and such, but saw Terry's on here, right? Terry even says, hey, I love podcasting. One of the things that I always do. So typically Terry's got this great conference at SEO Spring Training, always happens kind of in April or May. This year he changed it to May. Kind of in February-ish, I looked at who's going to be on there, who's speaking, who's going to be, and I'm like, all right, I have a twofold purpose with it. One, I want to, because I'm a sponsor for SEO Spring Training, so I want to see as many people come to the conference as much as possible. So I want to pitch it. But at the same time, I'm doing exactly what you're suggesting. I'm looking at the speakers. I want them on the show kind of prior to, talk about what they're going to talk about a little bit at the conference. I get to know them a little bit better. And then I see them hey, good to see you. Wow. Right? Yeah. It's just so smooth. It just works.
The other way is that you just walk up to them cold at that conference and you're like, hey, do you want links and PR? And what do you want?
That doesn't usually work that well. The other thing that I do is I go to conferences maybe, and I did this with Rank Masters. I went to that event. A bunch of people, I had no idea who, I didn't know you from Adam. And I'm like, I want to get to know people. And then I just plant the seed a little bit hey, I have this show. I would love to have you on. I'll send you some info after the conference and see. And that's exactly how we connected.
That's right.
You on here today. So there's so many different ways I think that you can tactfully go lay some tactics down to pull people onto your shows and provide great value. And that's kind of the next piece that I love that you talked about in your example was, you never know where these connections begin to map out and the path that they take. Look at what you're doing now with that first guest and the doors that you've opened and the relationships and the people that you've come to meet and not just the business that you've created for yourself, but as well the value that you've brought to all of these hundreds or thousands of people as well. I mean, it's just so dynamic, so impressive.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Here's the thing that I find amazing. So many people, I think, this is one of the things I do find it amazing and have just a high respect for you on this is I think so many people that would probably in your shoes exit the agency. You've been knee deep in the niche, for years. You sell the successful agency, but you didn't stop. You did not stop being an expert on the industry and continuing to provide value in the industry, even though you don't have an agency. You're still doing the Roofing Success podcast, and I've got it popped up here, right? You're still doing this thing.
I am.
And I don't know how many shows now you're into this, but I'm like, tell me a little bit about kind of your mindset around it, and what your, I guess, the intent or your objective is of why you continue to do it, even though you're not really like an agency driving, marketing around it.
So for many years, the only sponsor of the podcast was Roofer Marketers. So now we have a sponsorship model. So we have some. Right. It's a revenue generating activity from that aspect, and then I have, because I know the industry so well, I have other ways of serving the industry. So I have an AI agent agency that I recently launched, which serves that industry, right? So we build voice AI agents through the customer journey and employee journey for roofing contractors, and then we'll expand into other home services and things like that. But starting with roofing contractors, and so I have a trusted audience. When you have a trusted audience, they're very open to buying from you. And so, not that I'm doing it just to sell to them, but because of the value that I've created in their lives, I'm looking for other ways that I can create value in their businesses. So initially it was through the marketing efforts, right? So we made the phone ring and people submit forms.
Right.
What we learned is that about 40% of those leads go unanswered or don't get followed up with in a timely manner. And so now I'm solving that problem for those companies. And so I can continue to solve problems for that audience. And I enjoy it, man. Like, I've made a lot of great friends on the show. One of my guests, we also, I'm a business partner in a home services company down in Florida because of that relationship. I have the AI agency. There's so many things that just keep coming from that keep bearing fruit from it. And I really, I was told a long time ago, and the reason I started a podcast was I was at one of the 7-figure agency events. And one of the agency owners I was talking to said, "You should really start a podcast." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because you're always asking questions. Like, you're just always, you're very inquisitive into what, like, oh, how'd you do this? And what'd you do that for? And why'd you do that? And why didn't you do this versus that?" And so it's something that I enjoy. Truly. So.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I think you and I are somewhat similar. I always say I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. I love just learning about stuff that's not even in anything that I'm doing, right, from a business, but just like, how does that work? I find that fascinating, right? I could go down a deep hole sometimes on stuff that I don't know why I did, but it's, it's just, I'm fascinated by, just that information and picking up new skills or learning new things. But I love, though, your thought, though, that because you know the market, the niche so well, through your perspective, like, here are their needs. What are some things that we can build or create to help solve those solutions for them in a new way as well? And you open the door to AI. And I wanted to ask you a little bit as well around AI and how do you see AI kind of in the digital marketing space? Where do you see it moving from, in so many different ways, I think, but.
It's a very broad question now.
I know. I'll let you go in whatever avenue you want to go.
Yeah. But from an agency perspective, let me start with this. I had this conversation with one of my coaching clients yesterday, and it's a realization that I came to. A marketing agency is an agency, right? So when we kind of draw real similarities, we're looking at maybe the old ad agencies of Madison Avenue. Then we have, it's kind of evolved into what it is today. But really, what we do on a basic level is we help people do tasks that they don't have a skill set in. That's all we do. I was, in terms of AI, everyone's like, or people, I have conversations about it and they're like, yeah, but, someone could just get a Go High Level account and build their own AI agent. And they could go and sign up for Vappy or, one of these services, SynthFlow, and they could just build their own voice AI agent. I was like, yeah, they could also sign up for a Google Ads account and run their own Google Ads.
Right.
They can also, business.facebook.com, get their business manager set up, create an ads account and start running ads. They could also do SEO on their website. Guess what they don't do, Randy? Any of that. They hire us to do it, right?
Right.
Or at least a portion of them do. Not everyone wants to solve those problems in their business.
Yeah.
So they go to experts in that business. So here's what I would encourage people to understand from that level is it doesn't matter what the how is. Remember, who, what, how, right? The how right now is SEO. It's Google Business Profile Optimization. It's Facebook ads. It's Google ads. Maybe it's Nextdoor ads. Maybe you're doing TikTok ads, organic social media, whatever you're doing, direct mail. Like I know some really successful direct mail agencies, right? It's just the how. So what you're doing from an agency perspective is you're becoming an expert in the buyer's journey for that customer and the execution in those channels. And so it doesn't matter what the channel is. If the channel becomes LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, things like that, you will then shift your expertise, or I hope you will shift. I would continue to learn
right.
how to execute these strategies, how to find the who and get the message in front of that who on X channel, right? Because that's all we're doing. It's very in that framework, it's very simple. So as an agency owner, we just have to stay on top of the how. Continue to advance your skill set in the channels and be ready. Some of them will fizzle away. Some of them will become the one. Right. I used to build websites. We used to have to build 2 websites every time we built a website. One for Internet Explorer and one for Netscape Navigator. Yeah, and it would detect if it was, and it would show the one that right. You don't know who's going to win, right? And now it's just Chrome. So you don't know who's going to win in this. So if you develop the skill set and you're able to execute in those channels. Now, from a business ownership perspective, I think it was the CEO of Shopify that I heard recently talking about at Shopify, they essentially have a hiring freeze. And the hiring freeze is solve this with AI first. If there is absolutely no way for us to solve this with AI, you're allowed to hire a person. And I think that that's another aspect of implementation in our own businesses is we have to start, because it's progressing so quickly and it's getting so good so quickly, that we should pay attention to that from that perspective. From a business ownership perspective, man, my account managers are swamped right now. Okay, what AI tools can we get for them, buy for them, build for them to be more efficient, and we don't have to hire another account manager,
right?
Because that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of a scary future, though, right? When you start, I mean, beyond just digital marketing, but when you're thinking about businesses as a whole, if that kind of mentality or that process kind of takes hold and becomes the norm, which is, can this be solved first in AI before we start looking to add another headcount? That kind of changes the game a lot in regards to what kind of skill sets do you need to be marketable in this in that kind of environment, right? As an employee or as a member of a team.
Yeah, you need to start with prompt engineering.
Yeah,
it's a pretty simple skill set, but if you learn prompt engineering, that'll be a leg up for you. another thing is we're going to go through for the next few years. Maybe we could replay this in the next few years and see if I'm right on this. But I believe that we are in a period of arbitrage from a business aspect, right? So we can, at this point in time, there's going to be arbitrage available there. So if you are looking to AI to fill that employment gap, the needs gap in your company right now, there's arbitrage because the next company hasn't done it yet. So when things like this happen, there's an arbitrage opportunity. But very soon, in 2-3 years, that arbitrage will be gone, and this will just be implemented across. This will be the norm. Right. So right now, if you are a business owner, you better take advantage of the arbitrage opportunity. And the arbitrage is the difference between what you would pay today and what you actually can pay. So that's going to go away very quickly. I'm an eternal optimist. Back in the mid 80s, my mom was a typist. There's no such thing as that anymore, right?
What's a typewriter, right? My daughter, if I ask my 17-year-old daughter, "Hey, what's a typewriter? You ever play on one?" She'd probably like, "What? A what?"
And here's where my optimism lies. The unemployment rate is not much different. Right. Through the technology boom, the unemployment rate is not much different. I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk. I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk that said it. Like someone bought 10,000 horses the day that Henry Ford opened up his factory, right? And they lost. And some people there are going to be people that lose and don't. But if you see if you skate where the puck is going, right? You know that this is coming. Start to position yourself in that way. I talked to a owner of a software company recently, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to ensure that my family comes out of this on the right side of things." He has young children. They homeschool, so he's like, "I'm implementing learning activities that will help them be ready for this." So it's in the preparation. Right? When opportunity meets preparation, if you become prepared, or you will have problems.
Yeah. It is going to be a transition, definitely. And as you were describing, anytime there's been technology advancements or changes in processes, whether it's the typist or whatever it is, there's always, historically, I will say, there's always been more new jobs created in those industries or in that technology than the jobs that they've replaced. So there's a net positive gain typically. And I read somewhere, I wish because I've quoted this, now I need to go back and find where I read this. But I read somewhere that, in a decade from now, 30% of the jobs that'll exist at that point have not even been thought of today.
Haven't been thought of. Here's an example of that. As I've been building my AI agency, Power Up Agents, as I've been building this, I have had to create job descriptions for positions that do not exist.
Right. So you're already doing it. Yes.
I'm already doing it. I have 4 roles in my company I'm looking on LinkedIn and I'm looking for, like, what should I call this thing? Like, what is this role that I have? Like, I had to define a completely new role. And and so that happens also. Right. And 4 roles I had to make up. They didn't exist. Like you said, they didn't exist.
Yeah. That's amazing. That is amazing. I would hope, I'm going to make this statement, but I would hope that as digital marketers, because we're, kind of so, I will say on the edge, and I hope that, most marketers are, digital guys are at this point, that I think it's a real I've talked with so many people as well that kind of think this way as well. It's kind of like this wild west right now that it's almost endless what the opportunities can be if you're in this digital marketing space right now and the things that you can do. And it's almost, if you can't figure out a way to make money in this in today's environment, then you're really not thinking much about it.
Yeah. Then
Because
you haven't just went to ChatGPT and asked it how to make
yes.
money.
Because I mean, there's so many things. I mean, when you just start talking about arbitrage, right? And like the arbitrage in the business, but I mean, there's so many different services and things that you could create, like what you're doing right now, that you can create as a service to XYZ company and XYZ industry because they don't know how to do it,
I don't know
or
how to
they
do it.
certainly could, but they don't want to spend the hours to go figure it out. And, that's not their expertise. It's not what they want to be the expert in.
That's right.
Yeah. So many opportunities out there, but it all comes back to you and I as well. We're in this abundance mindset, right? The
That's right.
I'm very positive kind of thinking about, man, there's so many things. It's such a great space right now.
Yeah.
I had somebody on the show a few weeks ago as well, and they said, I feel like I'm living in the age where the internet just got created again, because
Yeah.
it's like that new and shiny, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I had a cousin. The reason I went to that I chose the major that I did, I was a late start, so I was more of a little bit of a juvenile delinquent, and then I kind of eased my way into college, and so
I
I
can see it.
graduated
I can
college.
see
Yeah,
that.
you can see that. Yeah, it shows still. I graduated college 10 years after I graduated high school, and barely graduated high school. So, and so, in that time frame, I had a cousin who did computer science, and he graduated in like 1998. I graduated college in 2004. He graduated in 1998 and like was written a check for $100,000 salary immediately to like go through Y2K code.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, there's these weird, like that was the first .com boom, right?
Yes,
like there was the .com boom and the Y2K stuff and all the, like there was this huge, like, again, back then, if you had any kind of skill set in tech, you had a huge opportunity to, from a financial perspective. And again, I think to your point, boy, we're back there, but it's in learning to identify arbitrage opportunities. Like I said, I learned SEO on the Warrior Forum, right? And building niche websites. And, at that time, pre-Panda, pre-Penguin, just throw some links at it, throw some garbage links at it. And all of a sudden you're ranking in the, and throw Google AdSense on the site. And I got $500 a month coming off of that one, and 1,000 off of that one, and $20 a month off of that one. And,
it's like raining money.
It's like, but that was an arbitrage opportunity, right?
Yeah.
There was early Google ads was an arbitrage opportunity. Google local services ads was an arbitrage opportunity. I remember when we were with Roofer Marketers, I would look at a business and I'm like, there's no one in your area running Google local services ads. Sign up now and you'll be the only one with the little green check mark, and you'll be paying like $15 for a roofing lead. That's $150, $200 for pay-per-click. Like there's develop a skill set in recognizing arbitrage opportunities.
Yeah. Love it. So I know we've talked about learning and, watching and engaging with others a bit. Who do you listen to? Who are the thought leaders? Who are the folks that inspire you to like continue to think in different perspectives?
So, I mean, my biggest mentor has been Josh Nelson, 7-Figure Agency. It was like, for me, it was WWJD. What would Josh do? Like it was, that was our way, man. Like he really was the path for, for us. And we really followed the 7-figure agency model to a T, and it led to what we did. And so all was there. I'm in the Titans group of the 7-figure agency. And so that's all of the Titans group are all multi 7-figure agency owners. And so there's some phenomenal minds in there. We'll sit down and mastermind and think about that. And then I go outside. I'm finance. I love like Chamath Palihapitiya and the All In guys, and I love a lot of different places. And then I'm an audiobook guy. I'm just like, there's not nonstop. My Audible library is ginormous, and it's just another book and another book. I look to people like, who I've been listening to recently. Myron Golden is really phenomenal in terms of mindset and just crafting offers. And there's just so many. There's so many. It's just always, it's always on. It's always on for me. Yeah.
It's always on. Love it. So I love that you didn't just like exit and kind of ride off to the sunset. So, but what do you think, if you had to look at Jim 5 years from now, where do you think Jim is?
Still providing value in some way. Like I love my coaching, the coaching that I do with 7-figure agency, with the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance. I love providing value to businesses and helping them succeed. That's what I'll be doing forever, man. Is just how it's, using the knowledge and skill set that I've built over the years to help others.
Yeah. Love it. Jim, man, I enjoyed talking with you so much. I appreciate you being on the show. Such a great quality guy. Folks, if you want to connect with Jim, you can. And let me even throw in, I'll throw this link in because I think it's about the only link that I have. Maybe that'll work for you. But I'll throw the link over to your Roofing Success podcast. And I'm sure folks can go and connect with you over there for
Facebook,
whatever the topic is, whatever they need from you, right? But man, it's such a great joy. Thanks for being on the show, Jim. Next week, I'm out of the office all of next week, so I'm not doing a live show. But the week after that, I've got Elias Lavadaris, SEO Neo, SEO Autopilot, Colinkry. We're going to talk. He's got a new book that's coming out. We're going to talk about that and how he's focused and pulled incredible gems and jewels from CEOs from all around the globe. Very similar stuff that we've been talking about. So folks, hey, like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you in the coming months. And again, Jim,